All right, ladies and gentlemen, come on in, get situated. I would suggest you have out at least a piece or two of notebook paper. As you are coming in, have your notebook paper out and ready to go. If you have your cellular or mobile device, go ahead and sign up for the NEO class. I'm sorry it's not as easy as I thought it was. My understanding, whenever I've signed up for NEO classes, is I can use an access code and it's way easier. But apparently I just added another step, but you'll be okay. So sorry about that, but go ahead and do that. I'm going to go through this. I'll be going through this NEO site just to let you know. There's a lot of different resources on there. Whenever I'm teaching these days, I think to myself often, WWGD, what would Getler do? And so instead of printing out a bunch of handouts for everybody to have, I've put a lot of the things that I normally print out on this NEO class so that you have access to it via the interwebs. So go ahead and do that. Take a few seconds as we get started. Does everybody got it? Okay, well, I'll just talk about kind of how this day is going to go. First things first, I understand that a lot of you need to have your cellular devices. I know some of you are going to be taking notes on it, so I'm not going to make a no cell phone rule. But one of my rules for our review sessions is that we utilize the time wisely. All of you know, well, if you don't know who I am, I guess I'm Mr. Optidal. I know some of Ms. Jacobson's students are here as well, and you are more than welcome. You all know that I enjoy learning history. I enjoy teaching history. You know that we are going to have a little bit of fun tonight as we think back to all the ridiculous and absurd jokes that I've made over the semester. But I am going to ask that we keep side conversations to an absolute minimum. Nothing frustrates me more when students come to these review sessions for the sole purpose to socialize with their friends. It's not personal, but if you're here to socialize, it's okay if you need to get up and leave. I will not take it personally. But for the people that are here, we want to make sure that we're continuously respecting them and their time. That being said, too, thank you for being here. I know you are all doing a million other things. I know you have other AP classes. I know you have other honors classes. I know you're involved in sports, in music, in extracurriculars, in church activities. I understand how strapped you are for time, so I appreciate you being here. I think these review sessions are typically helpful, mainly to try to help you remember the basic things from each time period, go over again, refresh, particularly for semester 1 students, refresh how to write these essays, what a short answer is, looking at multiple choice. So by no means is this comprehensive, though. By only coming to these review sessions, I'm not going to guarantee that you get a 5. You need to do the work outside of these review sessions as well. So while I'm very excited that you're here, I think it's going to be productive. Please do not just only rely on this. You should be spending time each day, ideally, right, or at least a little bit of time each week preparing for this exam. All of you, because I know Ms. Jacobson does similar things as well, all of you already have all of the study materials that you need. You spent a lot of time writing notes, a lot of time preparing for essays, a lot of times doing activities in class. All of those things were designed for you if you kept all of it, because of course all of you wonderful students did. If you keep all of it, it provides it essentially is a study guide that you made yourself in your own words. So before you do anything else, I would start reviewing those things. Particularly if you were in my classes, a really good place to start are your IDs. Those flashcards that you made for each week's exam are going to be really, really beneficial for you, particularly as you're trying to remember specific pieces of evidence for essay writing on the AP exams. So that being said, I want you, as we're getting into AP season and stress is starting to get higher and higher, I want you to relax a little bit. Know that through all the hard work that you did, either this semester or last semester, you are prepared to take this test. But the work is still continuing. We're still going to continue working together to make sure you're ready. So we have these review sessions from 6 to 8 on Monday nights. We're going to be here. The Apple Academy has been awesome and says, yes, we have a great big room, and we'd like to allow this space to be shared so that students can prepare for the AP exam. I'm also opening up my classroom during Royal Time on Mondays and Fridays to continue doing some multiple choice work on Mondays and then some essay work on Fridays. I'll essentially be, and the students who came in today essentially got into a big huddle together and started going through multiple choice questions. Some of those multiple choice questions might be similar to the ones we're going to do tonight, but it always helps to review. And then on Fridays, I'll also be giving you additional essay topics so that you can work with a partner or simply try to do it on your own to brainstorm, come up with a thesis, come up with an analysis, and see how you do with it. Does that make sense? So these are 6 to 8. We'll be going through the different time periods, one or two time periods per evening, and then we're going to be going through multiple choice and essays during Royal Time. So a lot of opportunities to study. Any questions on that before we get going? Good! So here we go. And by the way, there should be some extra chairs there, so don't feel like you have to stand in the back. Sorry, I'm not mean to point you out, just don't want you to get tired. You're going to do a lot of work right now. So we're going to start out with multiple choice. And some of you are going to think that these questions look very familiar, particularly those of you with really, really good memories, because I'm going to be using some of the release questions I used for the final exam. And no, Semester 2 students, you are not getting a preview of what you are about to take, because Semester 2, you guys are going to be writing a paper and doing a project as opposed to doing a final exam. So here's what I want you to do. Here's what I'd like you to do. You might need to, again, back up here, you might need to move up. Again, what would Gettler do? Instead of printing out individual multiple choice packets and then handing everybody a multiple choice packet, I have it up here on the screen. If you need to move up into some of the areas up here, feel free to do so. But remember, every time we look at these multiple choice questions, they are always going to have some sort of stimuli, which I know is kind of weird because the College Board's trying to stimulate. But the idea is you're going to have some sort of document, some sort of image, some sort of thing that is there to try to help you remember things from class, and especially from the AP content. Something I really want you to focus on that I just got sent by one of the College Board trainers is that they noticed that a lot of the questions really focus not just on what's in the document, but what is in the document, how that reminds you about the time period and what you remember from class. And so specifically, I want you to notice time period, I want you to notice place, and I want you to notice any of the other elements of HIPPO that we talked about. That doesn't mean I want you to go crazy into the analysis of the document, but make sure you understand those things before you try to answer the questions. Cool? So go ahead and take 2 minutes to answer questions 1 and 2. Ready? Set. If you can't see, you can move up. Go! And do it alone! You have no friends on the AP exam, so do it alone!
Hey guys.
You will have no friends! 2 minutes start now. Remember, you have no friends on the AP exam, therefore don't practice with friends. Also, don't take pictures.
Why?
Because they say it's illegal. Oh. Doesn't mean you can't read the question. You have another minute.
Can you scroll it down like point 2? It's cut off.
stay here because we're going to do more. Number 1. The particular consequences invoked in the ritual curse in the treaty most strongly support which of the following statements about ancient Mesopotamia? Now, whenever you get multiple choice questions, like I said, you're always going to have some sort of stimulus, either a document, an image, it could be a primary document, it could be a couple secondary sources. What you always want to make sure you do, though, is process of elimination. There might be some answers that are somewhat right, but not the best answer. So you want to make sure you read through all of the possible answers and cross out any ones that you think are definitely wrong. So, which ones are definitely wrong? Why A?
Secular authority.
What is secular authority, Toby?
Not really to go on.
Nice. Tobes Cakes remembers what about the the pre-classical era and political authority?
It's not secular.
It's not secular. It is what? Single, all-powerful, divinely ordained ruler. Good. What else can it be? Why not?
That's just not right.
It's just not right.
That's just not right. Fair enough. Okay. What else can it not be? We said D. Can't be D. Can't be A. Yeah, why not B? Well, and it has nothing to do with pastoralism, which is what? Domestication of animals. Nicely done, Eric. Therefore, the answer is C. Maintaining and expanding agricultural production was seen as a core task of governments. Again, side conversations. Number 2. The relationship between Assyria and the subject city-state as described in the passage was most likely the result of which of the following? Which can it not be? You can say B? Why not? Yeah, A, it's not peaceful, and they have more legitimate claims, like, I got there first? I don't know what that means. What do you mean by more legitimate claims? Mine? They lick it? No. So, what else can it not be? Why not C? Say it, Rena. Yeah, monotheistic religions by 670 BCE? Not yet. Not yet. Good. What else can it not be?
D.
Say it again.
D.
Why not D?
Because irrigation is definitely necessary.
Hashtag what?
What?
Let's see. Yeah, I thought it might have been D at first, but then I read A and I thought it was a better answer.
Wait, whoa. In class we said it was D.
Did we say it was
We
D?
did.
Why would it be D?
We said it was A.
Yeah, I thought we at first said it was D and then we said it was A before. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. Good. Here we go.
Cool, so
So, hold on one sec. We got a question from Mr. Newton. Say it again. What about it?
number 66.
How is that? It says we're going to put an end to all vegetation in your land. Yeah, but it's a king to the ruler, and that's what he's going to be able to. He's going to be able to destroy them essentially. We'll go 5 to 7, and I can actually make this a little bit bigger. There you go. What? I go to the arrow on the what?
That's so nice.
Yeah, you gotta show me. Oh, there's. You got a minute 45. 30 seconds. You have no friends. Stop whispering. Tommy, no friends. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shunzi was advocating an approach to governance that most clearly reflected the principles of, many of you say Buddhism. It can't be D.
No, I cannot.
Not D. What else can it not be? Yes, it can't be A. Why, Mr. Newton? It doesn't talk about nature enough. It talks about water, but it's not talking about nature and finding. No. It can't be what else? Yeah, it can't be B either. But, yeah. Wait, ask that question. Emily has a great question. Shh, focus. Emily, ask your question.
Oh, why is it not me?
Yeah, why is it not legalism? Because at first read, this really does look like legalism. Because it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you follow the law, you get elevated. That makes sense. We all watch the movie Hero. We remember Hero assassinates people or says to, and then gets elevated in status. However, this one line, but if he accumulates the learning of the texts. Without that one line, I would say legalism. But because of that one line, it's got to be C, Confucianism. Right? Good! Shunzi's this one's good. Bella, you got this one. Shunzi's idealized vision of Chinese society in the passage differs most strongly of which of the following, from the social structure of which of the following? What can it not be? Why not, Ricky? Good job, Ricky. That is a good guess. What do you remember about Mongol society?
They were just the mix of people who were basically everybody.
Yeah, and I would say that it doesn't differ too much because Genghis Khan allowed people to, because of pastoral society, social status was way more mobile and fluid than it was in other places. Good, so it can't be the Mongol. What else can it be? Why not A? Why not Roman society during the late Empire? Yeah, pretty much because the Roman Empire always had stratified social hierarchies. That's essentially it. And those who had Roman citizenship are always going to be above those who do not. Good. And usually the people who get citizenship are wealthy. Okay? And why not C? Just because B is a way better answer is Daniel Newton's favorite response to this. So yes, Daniel, why Hindu society during the Gupta? Bingo, exactly. Hinduism actually has a revival during the Gupta Empire, and we see the caste system becoming even more solidified. That's when Buddhism gets incorporated back into the Hindu tradition, and that's when Hinduism remains the dominant religion in India. And so, if you remember the caste system, was there any social mobility in the caste system? Yes, if you die and do a really good job. I always love that. Sure, there's plenty of mobility as long as you die. Chin? Oh gosh. I want to say it's BCE, and I think the Han Dynasty was about 250 to 250. So 250 BCE to 250 CE, so sometime before then. I don't remember the exact date. It's a good question. Do number 7 while we're here. Because then we're about to get to my least favorite graph ever. No graph. Graph. And I'll give you about 30 seconds. But really only 20 because that took 10 seconds to get going. Oh.
Yeah, I know. What? This is like some night thing.
No, it's all comfortable. I can't make this one.
Well, I don't think we're just checking.
5, 4, loquaciousness. 3, 2, 1. All right. What can it not be? And oh my gosh, this should be sticking out to you.
B just
B.
makes sense.
Why not A? That wasn't the one that first stood out to me. You're right, it can't be A, but why not? Anna, what? Yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with technological, agricultural, commercial innovation. I mean, was not China pretty well advanced for most of history? Yes, but that doesn't really have anything to do with it. Yes, Sarah?
So isn't Confucius kind of like education, and you said text was a big part, so why was like text technology? Education and moving up throughout that, so why?
Sure. Well, again, I think one of the reasons why China is the most technologically advanced is because of that's why I'm saying A wasn't the one that first stood out to me. But there is a better answer in that. I don't know that's a little bit of a jump to say that Confucianism was a main reason why there was technological advancements. However, I agree. Like I said, that wasn't the first one that stood out. Which one can it absolutely, for sure, not be? C. Oh my God! The history of China. They built a wall! Because they kept getting invaded. The virtual elimination of the threat. Really? China's history is the mandate of heaven. Not what Tommy and Nate do every Friday night, but a mandate of heaven, right? A mandate of heaven that says when there is a Chinese emperor who does not rule well, then they have terrible, what do they have? They have famine, they have drought, they have peasant rebellions, and then that emperor is violently killed and usually replaced. Good! What else can it be? What? Why not?
When was that everyone's name?
Yeah, good. Thank you,
I know,
Toby.
it was so
When
bad.
were emperors ever judged by the whole idea of Confucianism is right relationships? And that means for the superior to the inferior, not just the inferior to the superior. So if the person in charge is not doing their job, they have no right to be there. That's the whole losing the mandate of heaven thing. Make sense? Therefore, it has to be D, which Sarah, is probably one of the most stable continuations of Chinese history. Continuations doesn't make sense. Continuities in Chinese history. Good! Last few. Excuse me, Toby. I hate this graph.
I
remember this
one. I hate this graph so much.
What? We're going to listen to me talk to you about the free classical class there. Percent depopulated.
What's North Pole?
Germany. No, they're decreasing. 100% depopulation, which means you're 100% gone. Allow people to concentrate. Percent depopulated. And notice how it goes from 0 at the top to 100 at the bottom. because I see a lot of really fun. So we have here a map of the population, essentially the percent of depopulation. Here's the percent. It goes from 0 to 100. So in North Gaul, by 500 CE, villages have been 100% depopulated. Make sense? So, ladies and gentlemen, side conversations. Thank you. So, which of the following best explains the overall demographic trend shown in the chart? Yeah, definitely A. Yeah, definitely. No.
It's not A.
A? Bubonic plague? 500 CE? So what do we got?
It's not A. No. You got it right.
It can't be back
So
here.
it's D?
So I was right. Okay.
Focus.
I like how everyone agreed with him just because he said the answer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
What else can it not be? It can't be C. Why?
Because
Because forced migration wasn't really a big thing. Also, Italy's in the Mediterranean. Why would migrations in the Mediterranean make Italy's population go down? That makes no sense. But if you know that in 500 CE, the Roman Empire collapses, in 500 CE, the Roman Empire collapses, you know that there's invasions by Germanic and Central Asian peoples. Soviet. Gaul's Germany. France, actually, excuse me. France. Sorry, I always forget that. Anyway, it's the fringes out. Wait! Shay! 1200. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our multiple choice part. Thank you for bearing with me. You can go back to your seats. And as I transition, you can transition.
Oh, I thought you could just. Yeah, for sure.
So, again, there's probably about 60 of you and one of me. In order to use our time wisely, we can't socialize because we don't have time. So I'm going to ask that we stay quiet, please. Rally. So, the agenda for today is as follows. We already did multiple choice practice. I'm going to go through just kind of the exam overview, what you should be expecting on May 11th. Then we're going to go over content review. And then my hope is to start going over the types of essays, especially of a long essay question. We're going to be doing an essay type a week. There are 5 weeks, which means each night will be a different type of essay. Or a different type of, long essay question or DBQ. When we get to this, I'm going to ask that you have that NEO class up because there are some resources that I'm going to want you to do. That's going to be a while from now. But just so you are aware of that. So just to introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, May 11th is the AP exam. That is a Thursday. You are taking it on campus. The exam starts at 8 a.m., but you're going to forget that number because in your mind, in your phones, on your face, whatever it is that helps you to remember things, you are going to write down that you have to be at school no later than 7:30. You need to be at school no later than 7:30. With you, you need the following. Oh yes, thank you, Tommy, for reminding me that. Welcome. That is a Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. It is late start for everybody but you. Right? It still starts at 7:30 on a Thursday, so don't think, oh, it's late start. The AP exam is going to start at 9. Great. No! The AP exam is going to start at 8. But if you are there at 8, you are late, and you may not be able to start the exam if you come late. Sometimes you get testing coordinators that are a little nicer and more lax. Some of them are more like me and will kick you out and smile and laugh. So, just so you know, you need to be on time that day. with you. Oh, by the way, when you come to campus, the room assignment will be posted on the library. I don't know if they're going to have it up before 7:15. I don't know if they'll have it up the day before. So I can't tell you to check. You might want to try checking that Wednesday afternoon. But I know they'll have it up in the library window for you that morning. So the first thing you do, you come to the library, you check your room, and then you stand either outside the door. Usually the proctor will be there by 7:30 as well. I'll be walking around, giving all of you high fives, wishing you luck, getting very excited before I have to go to my wonderfully non-boring teacher meeting, and then you guys will start the test. You need the following. Number 1, you're going to need number 2 pencils. Make sure they're number 2. Make sure they're number 2. That's what you're going to do your multiple choice in. Your essays are to be written in pen. Just get yourself a black pen. Just get yourself a black pen. Now, I know for some of you that's terrifying because you're afraid of commitments. It's okay to use pen. It's okay to cross things out when you write in pen. The College Board readers know that you are writing this under a lot of stress and for time. So they're not expecting it to look absolutely perfect like Pat McQueen's notes. Because Pat McQueen's notes are absolutely incredible. And is she even here?
No.
She's not.
Oh, no. So make sure you don't have to worry about it. If a black pen is better, I think they say blue is okay, but just stick with black to be safe. Annie.
Why do you write it?
Honestly, it's because, and if any of you have looked at the exams after they're done, some of you are really angry when you write those exams, and so it's an extremely dark pencil, and some of you are extremely nervous so much to where you barely touch the paper. So in order to be able to read it easier, they ask you.
Kat just said, I love you often.
Nice.
Because she was watching the live stream.
Is it live? Dylan? Are you live streaming right now? Nice. Thanks, Dylan. I like on. Alright, anyway. Makes me kind of nervous now. There's like a wider audience here. Good. So, thanks a lot, Sarah. So you'll need pencils, you'll need pens. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring water. I know for most of you, you can't even go to church without your hydro flask, so I'm sure that won't be an issue. But bring some water with you. Also, bring a snack as well. Bring a snack as well. And because I am absurd, I forgot to tell you probably the most important thing. Ladies and gentlemen, your test prep starts the night before. Please, talk to your coaches, talk to your parents, talk to your choir directors. Let them know that Wednesday night, you got to go to bed early. Early does not mean midnight. Go to bed around 10 p.m. if that's at all close to your normal bedtime. If you can go to bed earlier, that's fine. Number 2, you need to wake up a little bit earlier on Thursday, and I need you to eat a good breakfast. A good breakfast does not mean sugary cereals. A good breakfast, Mr. Solis, welcome. A good breakfast is something with protein, something that is going to last. Your brain is going to be fried. And the more energy that you have, during the test, the better you are going to perform. So please, let your parents know. If your parents are really sweet, maybe they'll even make you breakfast. But if they're like mine, they'll high-five you and say whatever. But if they might even make you breakfast, that's a good thing. In addition, it typically happens that after the AP exam, students tend to come down with some sort of strange illness. And they all seem to have doctor's notes and or parent permission to go home after the AP exam. So you might want to tell your parents that you're going to feel a little ill that day. So tell your parents, boy, Mom, I'm feeling ready for my exam. However, I'm really thinking that after the exam, I'm probably going to have a headache. I'm going to need to go to the beach. So you might want to start talking to your parents now so they can excuse that for you. Sarah.
What is the test?
The test is about 3 hours and 15 minutes. So, I want you to know. Listen. I want you to know that sometimes that's 3 hours and 15 minutes, Boom. Sometimes you get a proctor that's a little bit less organized, and so be prepared. That might even turn into a 4-hour ordeal. So it kind of depends. I mean, the testing time is 3 hours and 15 minutes. Does that make sense? So they're not going to jip you on time. So if you're planning on going to your afternoon classes, you may or may not make it to third period on time. Does that make sense?
It's fine.
Yeah. Remember, this is live stream. So, Z.
When do we find out our results?
Not till July. Yeah, July 5th is usually when I get the email with your results. You might get it sooner. The reality is they actually have to pay a bunch of teachers in order to fly them out to Utah in order to sit down and grade essays for a week. So it takes a while for them to do that and then calculate all the scores. Mr. Bradley does it. I need to get off my butt and do it one year. I keep missing the deadline to apply.
Do it.
You do. Well, because reading 800 essays in a week just sounds awful, but it also really helps. So that is your test day. When you start the exam, the first thing that you are going to be given is the multiple choice. The multiple choice will be 55 questions in 55 minutes. That's 55 multiple choice questions. Each of them are tied to some sort of stimulus, be it an image, be it a reading, and that's 55 minutes. You will then go straight into, after that time, into the short answer section. The short answer section will have 4 short answers for you to answer. Be aware, one of them will not be graded, but you don't know which one that is.
What?
So for all intents and purposes, you have 4 short answers to do your absolute best on. That is about a 40 to 50 minute period for you to answer those short answers, which gives you about 10 minutes in order to answer each one. Does that make sense? Sarah?
Another question. Why do they do that?
In life? What do you mean?
Why would they ever do that? Like take away one of the 4.
Oh, it's because, well, the reason is because that's actually them doing testing research. They're doing different sorts of, they're testing out questions and styles of questions and seeing how it works. Daniel and Sophie.
Everyone, do they choose which one is going to be graded for everyone? And is that because they decide what is bad on there?
No, it's not because they decide one of them's bad always. It's not like I think it is just testing research. That's how it was explained to me. I'm not 100% sure on
So
that.
they use that question for like it's just information.
Possible. Yeah. It's about between. I gotta go back and look at the exact time, and I'll have that for next time. It's about 40 to 50 minutes. It averages out to about 10 minutes per short answer. Ms. Trissler.
Have we done any examples of the short answers in?
Every time you do the warm up with the A, B, and C with the document that you're looking at, that's a short answer question.
Are they gonna have like the A, B, and C portion too?
It's gonna look exactly like that.
It's gonna give us like a document that we
Yep.
Oh.
No. A, B, and C is like identify, explain, this. Identify, explain, yes. And keep saying, make sure you identify, explain, because in college we're gonna have to do that. Alright. After that, you will take a short break. You will take a short break. This is when you will consume your nibbles. This is when you'll have your protein bar, your what do they call? What do they call, Mr. Solis? Yeah, your Cliff Bar. This is when you'll have your Luna Bar. This is when you'll bring out your Whole Food stuff. This is when Trader Joe's gets their money. You will have that ready to go. You will also not talk to anybody about the exam so far. You will not talk to anybody about the exam so far, and you will not take out your cell phones. That means you, Lacey, don't take out your cell phone in the middle of it to check Snapchat. Mr. Solis.
No smoking during the break.
That's true. Really?
Yes.
Oh, don't smoke, period. But, because the college board hates you, because they will think that you are cheating, and therefore Cheating. Literally copy people about answers and then you try to go back. Oh, sorry. No, I don't know why they do it in college. Mr. Solutions brought that in for, I don't know. You will then have, after that, will be your essay section. The essay section. 45 and 35. 45 and 35. What number is that? 45 and 35. 75. You will have 75. I asked people and you looked at me, so I did it myself. You have 80 minutes to do your document-based question and your long essay question. Ready? You have 80 minutes to do your DBQ and your LEQ. They are not going to say, okay, it's been 35 minutes, time to do your DBQ. You are going to get a block of time.
That is terrible.
You are going to get a block of time that you are to monitor your own self. They will tell you, listen, they're going to give you about a 10-minute reading period. They're going to give you a 10-minute reading period to read through the documents of the DBQ. Then they're going to say your 10-minute reading period is over, and you may begin writing. You may begin writing before that, by the way. That's just kind of formality.
Include the 80 minutes, or is that?
Yeah. Nope, that's not including 80 minutes. That includes, so it's 70 minutes to write both essays, about 35 each. You get 10 minutes to read the documents of the DBQ.
Sound like a watch or something?
Yeah, bring a watch. Just make sure it's not an Apple Watch. Yeah, right. 7. We're going to go over the DBQ. Bella. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to hear Bella.
Which part of the test do you supposed to
It's kind of a 50-50 sort of thing. So multiple choice and written part are about 50-50. So, okay, so that's your test day. Afterwards, you go home, you take a nap, you do whatever you need to do to recharge. But that's going to be your exam, just so that you know what to expect. I'll be going over this kind of the same thing each week, faster than I did this week, just to keep reminding you so that there are no surprises. But that's your day on the exam. Before I move on, any quick questions about that?
Wait, yeah. How many grades do we have?
1. So again, your proctor might be one of those really nice people that says take a quick bathroom break, but you'll probably have 1 break, which means you'll want to make sure that you're not totally drinking too much fluids, especially those of you that have very set schedules, and you know who you are. Make sure that you know that you're not going to be going to the bathroom in the middle of the test. Make sure you're aware of that. Cool? Great. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, here's how this is going to work. I'm going to begin going through our review kind of presentation. Just something to note about these presentations. Like I said earlier, these are by no means comprehensive. This is not absolutely every detail you need to know. I can't do that in 18 or 15 weeks, so there's absolutely no way I can do that in 2-hour blocks. But what I am going to do is to try to help you remember, so that as you go back and study more specifics, you can place that information into the general trends that we know warmly as the ways of the world. This is dark, and some of you from first semester just threw up a little bit in your mouth, and the rest of you during this semester, well, you're just used to that taste by now. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be about the pre-classical through the classical era. So that takes us from about 10,000 BCE to 600 CE. Now, it's important to understand that human history does not start in 10,000 BCE. What happens in 10,000 BCE? The Agricultural Revolution. Thank you, Eric. Nicely done. The Agricultural Revolution. So, But before we talk about the agricultural revolution, the College Board will probably ask you at least one or two questions about what the heck was going on in humanity before the agricultural revolution. So while we know that the agricultural revolution really was the dawn of what we as humans consider civilization, it was not like humans were not alive before that. And in fact, a majority, you guys trying to kill me here? In fact, the majority of human existence was actually before that. So here we go. In order to look first, we have to think about the hashtag paleo life. And some of you are on that hashtag paleo diet, or maybe I'm just too passe at this point. But the paleo life, that is Paleolithic. Paleolithic is anything before the agricultural revolution. And when we started our class, we actually asked a bit about what it actually means to be human. Because we, as a species of animals, are hominids. Particularly, we are the genus Homo sapiens. And don't ask me specifically why there's two homos in there, but that is an actual different thing. But in general, what makes us human? Number one, we stand up and walk on two legs. Number two, we got opposable thumbs. We give each other thumbs up. Number three, we use tools. And we created tools. And humans during the Paleolithic era were creating tools out of stone, tools out of bone. We also have more of a higher level thinking, the ability to reason, the ability to do things with a specific purpose in mind. The idea of one of the most interesting things I remember when we studied Paleolithic times is that humans in the Paleolithic era began to practice burials because they understood that life was something special and that death was also something special. So the first human burial ceremonies actually go back to the Paleolithic era, when they used to just throw people's bodies into pits. Good. The main thing that you have to remember from the Paleolithic era is that they were hunters and gatherers, which means what? They would hunt and they would gather. Yeah, what does that mean? They didn't farm anything, which means what? Yes, they were moving around, and we got that they were hunting. Yes, we got that they were hunting and gathering. What are they gathering? Plants, like nuts, berries, anything that they can scavenge, because things go through natural seasons. They're constantly on the move. In addition, they're also following the different herds around, particularly my personal favorite, the woolly rhinoceros. And because of this, they're in small bands of egalitarian kinship. Egalitarian kinship. First of all, egalitarian, what does that mean? Yeah, mostly equal. Kinship, what does that mean? Yeah, it's your immediate family. So when I think of the Paleolithic era, I think of imagine your entire life as one big family camping trip. One big family backpacking trip. You're consistently moving. You're like, oh my God. So you're like, yay, I love my parents. The idea of kinship. It's egalitarian because it's a small band. And because you're constantly moving around, it's hard to accumulate stuff or things. And therefore, without the accumulation of things or wealth, you're going to have more of an egalitarian society. Strayer gave you two examples of Paleolithic societies, the San of southern Africa and the Chumash of Santa Barbara. Now remember that those societies varied greatly. One of my favorite things about the egalitarian idea of kinship was the San hunting practice. The idea that when a hunter would kill a big animal, he would get all puffed up and excited, right? As we see some of our athletes do when they score a basket, and they chest bump, and they get excited. But the San wanted to eliminate those sort of distinctions, and so they had the mocking of the meat ceremony, when everybody would go around and say how puny the kill was and how worthless it actually was. And so it's interesting. Think about every time you score in any sort of sports, everybody's just like, "Oh, isn't that good? It's all right. I mean, I got points and stuff." Huh? Yeah, it's just a roast circle. That's the whole thing. And then they would actually roast me. So, in addition, the San also had a tradition where it was the owner of the arrow that got credit for the kill, not the actual person. What that just shows are steps taken in order to make more addition, ladies, Paleolithic life was nice because women were responsible for much of the gathering, which was a majority of the diet. 70% of the human's diet was gathering, but only 30%, I did the math right this time, Allison, only 30% was done by meat, and therefore women played an incredibly important role during that time period. Something we didn't go over as much in this class, but know that humans did discover fire. During the Paleolithic era, it was used for food, it was used for protection, and it was used for light. Something that was more popular last year than it was this year, but something also to remember is this is also a time period of human migration. This is when humans and humanity and Homo sapiens really started in Africa. This map says about 100,000 years ago. And all humans left out of Africa and traveled across by foot, by family, obviously not in one big long trip, until eventually you see humans populating the earth. That is something you're going to want to go back. And you're going to want to go back and look at chapter 1 in particular. And you're going to want to know what were the unique ways that people migrated to different areas. For example, the one that typically comes up is Polynesia. When people migrated to Polynesia, they used boats, and by that point in time, they had already developed agriculture. And so they bring agriculture and agricultural developments with them when they migrate. That makes sense? That's just one of those things. And there you can see this guy in his hashtag paleo diet eating a raw piece of meat. Hashtag paleo, it's healthy. Next is the Neolithic or agricultural revolution. Please remember that the Neolithic Revolution is the agricultural revolution. They are synonymous terms. The College Board might say agricultural, they might use Neolithic. We know, because of our good friend Jerry H. Bentley, that historians like to use big fancy words in order to sound really smart. And hemispheric integration will be next week. We want to know why farming? Because when we think about a big event, because agriculture, my goodness, is probably one of the biggest events in human history. It's one of those major turning points. There are a few points that we want to remember. Number one, well, why? The first reason is the end of the last ice age. As climate started getting warmer, natural grasses started growing more plentifully, and with humans already having a close relationship with their environment, they began to realize that if they planted some seeds one place, they would come back in their next migration route, and they would wind up in their next rotation route, and they would be growing even more. In addition, there was a food crisis because the extinction of large mammals, extinction of large mammals, which meant humans needed to figure out some way to eat and some way to get a lot of calories. Or mammoths, yeah. And then another thing to remember too is this is a revolution over time. It's not like one day somebody stuck the digging stick in the ground and said, "Look, I discovered farming," and then everybody. It's clearly something that happened over a period of time. And we're really not sure. Some historians date it all the way back to 12,000 BCE. Some say 10,000 BCE. But really from about 12,000 BCE to 3,500 BCE, humans are figuring out farming. It's not until 3,500 that we really start to see the first civilization. So that's a long period of time for humans to learn it. Another really important thing to remember is that it happened separately and independently. There were areas all around the world that had no contact with each other, but still had farming development. And those are things that we remember because of our good friend Jared that caused great global inequalities. It depended on what resources they had available to them, what animals they had. Remember, one of the big reasons why the Americas developed so much differently is because, and in a lot of ways a lot slower than Afro-Eurasia, was because of their lack of beasts of burden. Lack of beasts of burden. Remember, the only animal that they had was the llama or the guinea pig. I don't know if any of you ever tried to strap something on your guinea pig, but I don't think it could have gone very far without dying. When we see agriculture developing all around the world, with agriculture came very similar effects. And these are effects that we really studied as part of our first civilizations. But even before that, you see three distinct types of human societies developing. First are the agricultural village societies, which were exactly what they sound like. Small little villages, mostly of maybe a couple of kinship groups, that were sedentary and mostly relied on farming. You had chiefdoms, most notably in the Polynesian Islands, most famously made more popular by the new Disney movie Moana. Yes, and you also, and then you also had pastoral societies, unique in that they did not practice sedentary farming, but they relied on the domestication of animals. The agricultural revolution is not just the domestication of plants, when humans develop tools in order to help them farm and grow their own food. It is also the domestication of animals. Good, so effects. Number one are social hierarchies. We know that with the development of agriculture, that means some people had access to agriculture and some did not. And even those that had agriculture, the productivity of their land varied, which causes social hierarchies. Particularly in times of great need, those who do not have food are going to migrate towards those who do, which means they are going to be working for them, and therefore hierarchies develop. One of the main things is because humans become sedentary during this time period, and so you see the accumulation of wealth and goods because of that. Unfortunately, again, one of the things is, and I'll just include it in this, is the development of patriarchy. And if we remember and think back to why that developed, why is it that women earned this lower status as compared to men? Well, there's a lot of different theories out there, one of which is that new plow-based agriculture was just harder to do. And men, typically, not always, please don't throw anything at me, men are typically stronger than women and able to do that. In addition, Annie, don't hurt me, please. I thought you had a cross there. So, in addition, there was also a lot of competition over resources, and with constant warfare, typically men took that burden as well. So because of that, men felt like they actually earned something, and therefore they decided to create a patriarchal society. A wonderful thing that we read about, again with Jared Blunden, is that as farming being the worst mistake that humans ever made, one of the biggest impacts is that we all got unhealthy. Remember that ridiculous fact that people in Greece and Turkey are still shorter than their Paleolithic ancestors? That we have evidence that people's bone density became less. We have evidence that tooth decay was on the rise. We have evidence that there was more and more disease because people were sitting next to animals that poop. And so therefore, we have a greater presence of disease. Conflict, we already kind of talked about, settled societies. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, every time there is an increase in some sort of food production, you will automatically have more people. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the reason you are alive is because your parents can afford to feed you. If they couldn't, well. That's really the reality. In addition, one thing that we talked about a little bit too is the specialization of labor. When you have a surplus of food, not everybody has to farm. And with a surplus of food, people can focus on other things. This is where you see wealthier people hiring workers in order to build them specific artwork, handicrafts, weaving, different things like that. So we're going to see specialization. Last but certainly not least with the Neolithic Revolution is metallurgy. That is a good word to know, and there are a few dates that I want you to know. 3500 BCE is the Bronze Age. 3500 BCE is the Bronze Age. If you had bronze technology, you killed those with stone technology. Because you figured out how to do smelt copper and tin, which is one of my favorite words. You learned how to smelt copper and tin to make bronze. But then in 1500 BCE, people figured out how to make iron. And if you had iron, it was stronger than bronze, and therefore you killed the bronze people. 1500? 1500, and that's and that would be the Iron Age. Well, smelting copper and tin is bronze, so maybe beforehand. Smelt. Sounds like a delicious sandwich, right? Smelt. I got my tuna smelt. Yeah, I know. Okay, so we know that the agricultural revolution is really what became civilized. Now, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. These are just examples of the civilizations you should know as pre-classical era civilizations. Don't feel like you have to get all of these things down, because I do have this on the Neo class. So if you can't get all of this down, that's okay as well. But in China, we have the Shang and the Zhou dynasty. There is a mythical dynasty before the Shang known as the Xia dynasty, but again, we're not sure that it actually existed or if it's something that was just in folklore. But sometimes there is reference to a Xia or Xia dynasty in China. In Africa, this is the time of the Egyptians. Fun fact that of course I read on the internet, so it's definitely true. Cleopatra, who we associate with ancient Egypt, has actually lived closer to the time of Pizza Hut than she did the pyramids. That's how old Egyptian civilization is. It's something that's interesting to note how old and how long Egypt stayed prosperous. Of course, our favorite Southwest Asian civilizations were the Mesopotamians. That includes the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, and then the Babylonians again. In India, you have the twin cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro that made up the Indus River Valley civilization. In America, you have the Olmec and the Chavin. And the Olmec are the ones with the big giant heads. Those are always fun. Those are good. Other civilizations to note, because sometimes Robert W. Strayer did not really do a good job, I don't think, of talking about the Bantu during the classical or during the pre-classical era. The Bantu civilization begins to spread agriculture around Africa during the pre-classical era. In Central Asia, you have pastoral civilizations like the Hyksos are an example of that. We remember them because they brought chariot technology into Egypt. And in Southwest Asia, alongside with the Sumerians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, you also have the Hebrew peoples, the beginning of the Jewish faith. That is actually in the pre-classical era as well. Something to note, because for whatever reason it tends to get its way onto AP exams, is that it is because of the invasion of the Assyrians and the Babylonians that you see Jewish people being forced out of the land currently known as Israel or Palestine and into other places around the world. And then as the Roman Empire moves in, that's when you see a vast migration all around Europe of Jewish people. Those are, in general, your pre-classical era civilizations. But they all have a few things. And we talked about how the pre-classical era is really the theme of the pre-classical era is really, what does it mean to be civilized? Whenever you think of the pre-classical era, you think of the agricultural revolution and how that brought the dawn of civilization. And by 3500 BCE, we see these civilizations really developing and having these things in common. Number one is a heavy reliance on agriculture. One of the major theories that is presented by historians is that cities and states develop largely because of the need of large-scale irrigation projects. It's not a perfect theory, but that is a thought. One of the biggest things is the development of these cities. As people become sedentary and as some civilizations become more advanced in agriculture than others, people are going to move where there is food. And so these cities are going to become places of trade, places of specialization, and then also places of I don't know where I was going there. Cultural development. A lot of times too, these cities also played religious roles as well. Oftentimes there was always some sort of pyramid or some sort of place to worship as well in the middle. Urban planning is something that is very impressive, particularly the city of Mohenjo-Daro in India. Mohenjo-Daro had indoor plumbing, something that Western Europeans during the post-classical era, when they couldn't take two hands and smack their own bum, they didn't develop indoor plumbing until the 1800s. Mohenjo-Daro was in the pre-classical era. So urban planning is something all under the guise of an all-powerful ruler. Minimal expansion. We do see some empires really developing during this time. Most notably, you have the Assyrian, the Babylonian empires in Mesopotamia. Egypt itself becomes a sort of empire, despite the fact that it is a little bit loosely organized. Metallurgy and military technology. A rule of history is those who have the more advanced military technology are going to win. I gave you the example of the chariots of the Hyksos and the Hittites. They are going to be extremely influential in collapsing the Egyptian civilization and helping Egypt therefore regain. And chariot technology even moves all the way to China. My favorite thing about these cities is their monumental architecture. Again, with sedentary lifestyle, with a surplus of agriculture, humans were able to devote their time to other things. And so in order to show their immense either gratitude towards the gods or to show their immense power, single all-powerful divinely ordained rulers would oftentimes commission monumental architecture, something to show their power. In Mesopotamia, that's your ziggurats. In Egypt, we know these as the pyramids. In the Olmec, like I said, it's those giant heads, which is absolutely a goal in life of mine, is to have somebody carve a giant head of me, which is pretty awesome. Something that all of these civilizations developed is a system of writing. And remember, again, all connected back to agriculture. We think as historians that the development of writing across the world was actually done because of the need for accounting and figuring out agricultural surpluses and what to do. Eventually, those developed into written languages. I've talked a little bit about elites sponsoring the arts. This is where you're going to have some this is where you're going to have some epic literature developing. Most notably that we remember is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which really gives us a great understanding of what it means to be civilized, if you remember correctly, because according to Gilgamesh, what it means to be civilized in Mesopotamia and Babylon would be prostitutes, bread, beer, clothing, and living in the city. Right? So prostitutes, bread, beer. So some of you are like, oh yeah, that sounds civilized to me. That sounds great. Regional and trans-regional trade, something that we don't talk about a whole lot, but Strayer does point out for us, is that these societies, while they are developing, while they're going to have minimal interaction, they're still going to be interacting somewhat. So particularly Egypt and Mesopotamia are going to be interacting. Even across the Indian Ocean, you're going to see some sailors early as the pre-classical era bringing things even from India. And if you were in Miss Jacobson's class, you probably read the Southernization article, which was all about how everything we know is awesome really actually came from India, which is pretty cool. Social stratification and patriarchy we've already really talked about, and that's just something to remember. One thing I forgot to tell you was codified laws, and the most famous of the codified laws was Hammurabi! And Hammurabi's code is also proof for us to look at this social stratification. Because if I smack Tommy in the face, then I just get a slap on the wrist. Because I would be considered a noble while Tommy would not be. But if Tommy has the audacity and the gall to smack me, then Tommy is thrown into the river. But not against the river. And so you'll probably die. So that's the whole idea of social stratification. There were different laws for different social classes. Same thing was, actually one interesting thing about Hammurabi's code is it actually provided women with some protections, particularly divorce protections, other things like that. But for the most part, women were still considered less. Now we move on to the classical era, because we remember that our entire time periods are basically revolving around two of our time periods, the classical era and the modern era. And that really is because European, Eurocentric, stupid historians have decided that when Europe has its heyday, that's when time is good. So the classical era was really named after the time of the Roman Empire, when Europe was in its heyday. But in addition, since then it has been expanded to also incorporate other empires around the world, where we really see the foundations of civilization and societies that we know today forming. And that's what we're going to look at, is what does it mean to be classic? Because in the classical era, you want to think, dude, classic. That is classic, dude. Like classic Gupta. Classic. That is classic Qin Shi Huangdi. Like throwing him in a pit, dude. Classic. Okay, so you have the Qin and the Han dynasty here, ladies and gentlemen, as the foundational Chinese dynasties. Now, Qin Shi Huangdi in my class got a lot of attention. He got an incredible amount of attention, but the reality is this: Qin provides a foundation for the Han dynasty to really be the main classical empire. And in fact, China, during the Ming dynasty, wanted to save China for all of the black-haired sons of Han. They trace themselves all the way back. In addition, in Southwest Asia, we have the Mauryan and the Gupta Empire. We'll talk about Ashoka and his rock and pillar edicts. And the Gupta Empire really is actually classical India. This is when a lot of the classical literature, this is when a lot of Hindu temples were built all around, and a lot of the art that we consider as Indian-style architecture and art comes from the Gupta. Of course, in Europe, we do have the great civilizations of Greece and Rome, which we, as living in Western civilization, still even see having major influences today. Southwest Asia, and probably one of the most dominant of the classical era, is Persia. And then, of course, in the Americas, you have the Maya, the city-state of Teotihuacan, and the Moche. Other things to note about are in Central Asia, the Xiongnu, who are going to continuously be those pastoral civilization that pesters the Chinese dynasties, which is why they built that Great Wall that Matt Damon protects. And then also the barbarians of Europe, who are going to again be sort of village society people who continuously pester those. And we're going to come back to those in just a second. It's okay. You'll have this on. You'll have this there. So, ladies and gentlemen, the classical era is most known for the building of empire. There was minimal expansion for smaller, expansive states or even empires during the pre-classical era, but this is where we're going to see a vast amount of territory, typically over land, being conquered by single, all-powerful, divinely ordained rulers. These are going to be rulers like Alexander the Great of Macedon, who is going to conquer all the way from Greece into India by the age of 25, which makes me feel absolutely absurd and worthless. This is going to be the empire of Qin Shi Huangdi and Han Hudi. This is going to be Caesar Augustus. This is going to be the empires that we know and many civilizations consider their highest point. Against one of the things of the building of empires, the creation of centralized government. A continuation from the pre-classical is, of course, our favorite, the single all-powerful, divinely ordained ruler. Each civilization is also going to, in order to maintain centralized authority, first of all, I'm going really quickly, what does centralized mean? What about a government? This is breaking my heart, 2,000 pieces of money. What, Nate? State has a lot of power, and it all comes from how many locations? One! Centralized power means power is literally centralized into one specific area and then goes outward. Decentralized means there's a lot of power in different areas. Good job, Daniel. Daniel's way of remembering, hopefully it helps all of you. Good. Right? So centralized authority. One way to make sure that one single person can maintain authority over a vast amount of territory is to have people who are working under you doing your will. And that is the creation of bureaucracy. This we're going to see is imperative for any of these classical empires. You have an example of bureaucracy in the Persian Empire is, of course, the eyes and the ears of the king, who are those imperial spies that would look at the satraps. The satraps were the local governors elected by local rulers, and in order to keep an eye on them, the king of Persia would spy on you, and if you were ever doing anything against him, he would have you killed and assassinated and replaced. Codified laws, again, continue to be used, most notably in the Roman Empire. You have the 12 tables. In the Mauryan Empire, you have the ruler, Emperor Ashoka, who writes his rock and pillar edicts. His rock and pillar edicts. Do not forget it for Ashoka. It will be on the AP exam. Rock and pillar edicts. It's a way for him to show authority. It is also a way for him to spread Buddhism, because you have these pillars here that are all over India. And on those pillars, you'd have a lion, sometimes heads of lions, that would represent his imperial power. And those lions, especially if there's only one of them, would be facing Buddhist sites. So something to remember about that. Interesting to note, on the Indian 10 rupee is actually a little statue of Ashoka's rock and pillar edict, which shows how it has that tie to classical India. Cities are going to continue to be extremely important. And particularly when we look at the Roman Empire, it is cities that are going to bring that factor. And as Rome continues to conquer and be continuously expansive, as they conquer other places, they are going to make little cities Rome. And when you get conquered, you get all the blessings that is to be a part of the Roman Empire. You're going to get brick-like streets. You are going to get a little coliseum so you can forget how bad your life sucks and watch other people chop each other to death. You're going to get a forum. You're going to get public baths because you're going to get all those things that make it cool. Be #Roman. Persepolis, which all of you love, is a wonderful book about the Iranian Revolution, is actually a city that was considered the capital of the Persian Empire. And Persepolis was a place for the king to receive diplomats. And in that, you would walk through this grand palace with the king and all of his court, and the whole idea was to inspire awe. So cities are very important. Public works, probably the biggest impact that these empires did in order to connect people within their empire, are build roads. No, not so that you can walk to school, so that if you say anything against the government, they can kill you quickly. The whole reason for Roman roads was not nice. Why do you think the city of Santa Barbara paves roads? Well, I thought it was to help. And then we've already talked about large armies conquering people. And of course, the gentleman always loved, this is also the time of the Sparta, when you see military technology being extremely important. Ladies and gentlemen, another major theme of this time period is the fall of empires, because we know the classical era ends. And something that's very interesting to note is all these empires really fall for very similar reasons. And most of the time it's because they got too big for their own good. They used and abused the resources that they had and they couldn't figure it out. Natural disasters are going to be a major reason for why they do that. And a lot of times it's because the elites got too wealthy. Some people make a lot of comparisons to the United States and to the Roman Empire. How the Roman Empire, particularly the late Empire, those who were elites had just too much. And they were not necessarily using their resources as wisely, and that caused famine and devastation and a lot of resources to not be allocated well. Of course, another fun thing that happened to a lot of empires are nomadic invasions. We do see as empires expand themselves too much, it's harder and harder to maintain your borders. When it's hard to maintain your borders, you get invaded. And as you get invaded, of course, sometimes you hire outsiders to try to help you. And then you invite them in. Like you remember the John Green video that we watched. You invite barbarians to be inside your gates. You teach them your military tactics. And then before you know it, they're sacking your city in 410 and then again in 476. And of course, I'm talking about Rome. And these are just some examples. The Romans get conquered by the barbarians. The Gupta get invaded by the Huns. They're actually known as the White Huns. And then the Han Dynasty is continuously pestered by and conquered for periods of time by the Xiongnu. In addition, something I forgot to tell you, not only destruction of the environment, also disease. Disease is another reason why both the Roman Empire and the Han Dynasty fall. There we go. A second thing that is majorly important to this time period in setting classical traditions is not just the development of strong empires that leave this dream of centralized authority. In addition, it's also the codification of universalizing religions. These are the religions that you need to know happen. Zoroastrianism, which is one of my personal favorites, it happening in Southwest Asia and in Persia. It becomes the official religion of the Achaemenid dynasty in Persia. It is the first, and you see Mr. Winter's beautiful drawing up there on the railing about Zoroastrianism. It is considered the first monotheistic religion. When Ahura Mazda great Ahura Mazda, which is the god protege, M5, whatever you want to call it, the Ahura Mazda was a creator god who represents all things good, and there is an evil spirit by the name of Angra-Mainyu who consistently tries to undo all the good things that he does. Zoroastrianism is thought to have heavily influenced Judaism and Christianity as well. One of the most influential religions in history would be Hinduism, particularly known as the Vedic religion at this time, which occurs in South Asia. When you have the development of the Brahmin class, or it's a priestly class who are doing all of the rituals that people consider necessary in order to achieve moksha or eternal, nothingness really, and kind of just a release from that typical awful cycle of rebirth and keep having to take AP world history over and over and over again. Judaism in Mesopotamia, Christianity in Europe and in Southwest Asia. Please don't forget that Christianity comes from the Middle East. Just because Europe adopts it doesn't mean it's a European religion. Just don't forget that. Southwest Asia, literally in Israel. Yeah. Buddhism in South Asia, Confucianism in East Asia, Taoism in East Asia, I forgot legalism. Don't forget legalism. In East Asia, legalism is just follow the rules and you get rewarded. Break the rules and I throw you in a pit. And then, of course, rationalism in Greece, which is what we know is wonderful Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. No, it's not Socrates, it's Socrates. Okay. Shin. Well, really, Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism all developed in that period of warring states. But each empire adopted different ones. The Qin dynasty adopted legalism, and that's where Qin Shi Huangdi uses in order to support the effective rule. And the Han dynasty, to go away from that, uses Confucianism. And then, what? Southwest Asia is what? Legalism is East Asia. It's all China. So here's what you need to know about each of these religions. I'm not going to go through and teach you all the different religions because that would be extremely difficult to do. Number one, and number two, number one, it provided some sort of salvation. All these religions draw people in because they promise you some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Christianity says you can suffer all your life, but at least after you die, you will go to heaven. Confucianism promises a well-structured society if only you practice filial piety, which is respecting your elders and making sure that you live in a wonderfully stratified social hierarchy. Hinduism, same thing, provides a spiritual escape as Buddhism does. And of course we know that they were all codified into written texts. You need to know the different texts. Zoroastrianism, you have the Avestas. You have the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. For Hinduism, you have the Bible, the Torah, the Torah in Judaism, the Bible in Christianity. You have the writings of Confucius in the Analects for Confucianism. You have what's the Buddhist one? I don't remember. But you need to know, you should know all of those books, and they're all codified for different reasons. Remember, as these religions are promising to be universalizing, which means they promise to hold truth for anybody. So as empires expand, more and more people are coming into contact with these religions. It's a way to make sure that you are following the right way. They're all used to maintain authority. We've talked about that with your single, all-powerful, divinely ordained rulers. We all know that they spread outward. Sometimes this is a grassroots movement. Sometimes it just spreads via trade routes. Other religions are also more intentional and actually are missionary religions. For example, Christianity, Buddhism, both missionary religions. Judaism and Zoroastrianism are not missionary religions. Confucianism and Taoism really don't ever leave East Asia. They go to Korea, they may go to Vietnam, they go to Japan, but it's not going to leave East Asia. Of course, you all know that whenever a religion spreads, it's also going to... Yes, nicely done, Mr. Newton. Not only the highest grade on the midterm, also knows syncretism. Nicely done, syncretism. They also provide social stratification, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, and also opportunities to escape. Some religions, like Buddhism and Christianity, actively challenge social hierarchies. Christianity says it is easier to put a camel through the eye of the needle than it is for a rich person to go to heaven. The Buddha gave up all of his wealth and said it's the only reason why people suffer is because they consistently want Patagonia and hydro flasks. Just me. Influence literature and architecture. Something that you have to understand too, and that I want you to know, is that these religions all played a major role. Something I wanted you to all get more acquainted with, and I had an activity that we just didn't have time for. But each religion is going to have a specific style of architecture that is going to be influenced by religions. And so Greece especially, it's Greek rational thought because everything is very well ordered, very neat, and it is designed to try to show perfection, which is why Greek columns are actually slightly put inward, because when you look at them straight on, they actually look more straight up and down when they're slanted inward. And that's through the use of crazy mathematics. I think this is some sort of dance, but I have no idea why I put that picture in there, but it looks kind of cool. And you can see here, Buddhist-style architecture as well. Those arches up that we consider very typical to the Chinese pagoda is actually something that is influenced by Buddhism. Stratified social hierarchies, I believe, is the second to last thing that we're going to really be talking about the classical era before we move on to our essay work. Stratified social hierarchies are something that become a standard for classical era empires. And these are going to be the classes that people stay in for really a very long time until things begin to get challenged during the early modern era, into the modern era, and now into the postmodern era. And we know that sometimes religions define that. Like, for example, you have the caste system in South Asia, in India. Now, I don't expect you to know each and every single one of them, but it is good to know that the Brahmins are on top, you have the untouchables on the bottom, and that you have different roles for each of the different levels. And know that you cannot move up and down. Caste as Varna means that you have to do the job of your caste until you die. If you do a really good job, maybe you'll move up a level. It's also sometimes by chance, so you might become an ant. Good. The only time you had some social mobility within India in the caste system was through your jati. And if you remember that, that's J-A-T-I. And your jati is going to be within your caste, your specific economic role. Sometimes your jati would become wealthy and powerful, and therefore move up a status in its own lifetime. But you're never going to move up one of these. In East Asia and China, the Confucian ideal of filial piety is something to remember as well. That goes for two things. Number one, it supports stratified social hierarchies in that the superior must take care of the inferior, and the inferior must always listen to the superior. It also means that men should lead women, and women should always follow men, which is why in China you have some of the most patriarchal traditions of all of the different empires. Yes?
If a woman married a man and he was like really up there, and then they got a divorce, would she maintain that social standing?
Probably not. And she'd probably be a disgrace on her family. I'm sure there are examples of not, but typically probably. Because marriage is seen, if you were much lower than your husband was probably pretty desperate. And because that also meant that her family was raised up a bit of a status as well. Somehow, her family must have come up with one heck of a dowry. A lot of jokes for that one. Good. We also know that slavery is a major part of society, and that's slavery all around. Something to know about slavery in the classical era as opposed to slavery as we kind of understand it. Number one, it's not associated with race. Number two, mostly women are slaves because most of the slave work is actually done done in domestic housework. In addition, slaves were sometimes able to earn their freedom. Sometimes slaves who earned their freedom would own their own slaves. And so slavery was much more of a part of human society. You could become a slave by being a conquered person by going into debt. If you were a Roman and you were going into debt, you could sell your children and your wife into slavery, which is way more convenient, instead of going into yourself. And patriarchy we've kind of already talked about as well. And that's the picture of Miro that you remember, Fructus or whatever his name is. Fun times. Oh, lastly, and we're going to cover this a little bit more as we go into the post-classical era, but here are the expansion of trade. And this is where we really do see, I know when we talked about these trade routes, we focused on them during the post-classical era. But you have to know that trade starts along these trade routes during the classical era. And one of the reasons for trade is going to be the development of these large empires that are going to build things like roads and provide peace and protection. And we're actually going to get into that as well. But you have the Silk Roads, the Trans-Saharan trade routes, and the Indian Ocean. Another thing to note is that really the glue that binds those trade routes together are pastoral peoples who live in Central Asia, Northern Africa, and Southwest Asia. These agricultural civilizations will have merchants, but they're only going to go one town or two towns over max. The people that are going to be connecting these large civilizations are the pastoral peoples who are already migrating on their own. We'll just go into some of the causes and effects. Of course, we're going to talk about this a little bit more next week as well. But one of the major causes for trade to increase is invention, new technology, like such as the camel, which is one of the greatest inventions in human history. They figured out with a camel how to make a camel. In addition, I talked about large empires. Better examples of technology, by the way, is the lateen or dhow sail. The lateen or dhow sail that you're going to see particularly used around the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. Stirrups across Central Asia, using for horses, not just camels, but also camel caravans. Those are all examples of that. The spread of crops and techniques are something that happens as an effect of that. One thing I don't want you to forget, you cannot forget qanats. Qanats were the Persian style of aqueducts that were actually underwater, underground, and that was a way of pumping water from other water sources and from the water table in order to get irrigation. So qanats is an example, Qanats, and we all know rice comes from South Asia to Southwest Asia, and then of course from Southeast Asia into East Asia, which is always fun because that's the champa rice. And we already know that disease is one of those effects. So that was a lot. Any questions before you all fall asleep and pass out? You're exhausted? Good! Shay! Oh, the Xiongnu, the Hebrews, and those are the kind of fringe civilizations. And I don't remember the other one. I can look back. And then as we transition, just the Xiongnu and the barbarians. Xiongnu and barbarians. As we're doing this, go ahead and transition to that Neo class. Transition to that Neo class. I'm going to do it with you. Huh?
So good. Oh my God.
Are doing essays right now?
Yep. So ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and take a look up here. If you go to resources, and you go to, why is this different? Wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. What the heck?
Wait, is it in the catalog?
Yeah, under social studies.
Okay.